Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a pretty exciting one. We do have an in-hand review of the brand new ALEO ASIC coming from IceRiver. Going to talk about the AE0. We're going to look at it. We're going to look at the differences. It's the first time there's been some significant changes in the zero lineup. We'll look at that. We'll look at overall profitability. We're going to do a test. We're going to set this thing up. We're going to see how it runs after 24 hours, kind of give you a performance overview, and give our overall thoughts and opinions on not only current profitability, but what to expect in the future, as I think that's the key thing here, is that as we all know with these immature networks, that profitability number, if this is the reason you're buying it, is going to change drastically. So we're going to talk about that pretty in depth here. Okay. If that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So, for any guys who are unfamiliar, this is the IceRiver AE0. This is their ALEO ASIC. This is the smallest in their lineup. This is a small little at-home miner. This thing is only 100 watts, which is one of the biggest things that makes this guy appealing. Current price point on this guy is $799 direct from IceRiver, which also makes this appealing just because they had a massive price drop. You guys remember this thing was at $19.99 not too long ago. They did reprice it just because, again, they're keeping in line with the market and essentially just pricing it along with that. Okay. For any guys who are interested in this unit, we will have a link in the description. It does help support the channel. And also want to give a huge shout out to IceRiver themselves for providing us with this review unit so we can talk about it. Okay, so let's look at the overall specs. 60 mega hash, 100 watts. What is the key thing a lot of people like to look at? Let's look at profitability and do just a quick little comparison, because again, this is one of the key standouts with the IceRiver unit specifically over its main competitor, which is the only other ASIC manufacturer for ALEO, which is Gold Shell, and this is where the difference is massive. So when compared to the other equivalents, which are the smaller ASIC miners or the small little home miners, there's a massive difference in efficiency, right? So the direct comparison would be the IceRiver AE0 to any of these boxes, the AE Box 2, Pro, and the regular box. So there's already been 3 generations of the Gold Shell unit, whereas this is going to be the first iteration for the IceRiver unit. So as we look at overall profitability, again, this is current profitability. We'll talk about it towards the end, what to expect in the future here, but currently as is. The profitability at a 10-cent kilowatt hour is $9.66. The current profitability for the AE Box 2, $7.64. Kind of makes you think like, oh, okay, it's not that big of a difference. The difference will become glaring, especially as the difficulty increases. Okay, the efficiency will become a bigger deal. That is the massive standout. Okay, so currently, if we compare the top Gold Shell unit in regards to the box miners, the AE Box 2, the AE0 outperforms it there. It's at 60 mega hash versus 54 mega hash. The extreme standout, though, is the difference in efficiency. The AE0 is 100 watts versus 530 watts of that Gold Shell unit. As we've said before, efficiency is longevity, and if you're interested in one of these units, it's for that longevity purposes, right? So at this point, it makes it extremely appealing because, for example, if you're only planning on getting one, running one at 100 watts, even if it gets to the point where things do get really bad, difficulty does increase massively, the market does go towards a downturn here, because again, there's a lot of volatility going on. It's a lot easier to pay that 100 watts out of pocket versus the 530 of that Gold Shell unit. Massive difference in efficiency here. And this is what, for me at least, is the only one that kind of makes sense at this point, right? That efficiency, again, it's not something where it's a 20% difference. That is massive. Okay, so right off the rip, that's definitely what makes that guy appealing. Just want to reiterate though, we do see this current profitability. This is going to change drastically as units come online. Okay, we'll do a little bit more in depth after we get the performance of this thing. But the key metric you want to focus on here, at least I like to focus on, is your total yield per day. Not so much the profitability, right? Because anything can happen. The market is extremely volatile on both sides, on the upside and on the downside. So your fiat profitability will change. What you want to focus on is your actual yield, right? That should be the goal here, especially with a unit like this. Okay. So, nice quick little overview. Let's talk about the actual unit itself now. Okay, so there are quite a few differences here. In terms of packing, a lot of you guys are familiar. You guys had a few of these things. one thing that did change, they did add some paperwork in there, which was a little bit surprising. They did add a little FCC compliant paperwork, kind of making it easier to sort, as well as an actual instruction manual, right? Which this is also something new and kind of interesting, especially for you newbies. It does make it a little bit easier as you go through. It does have the basic use case, like how to log into it and such, which we will go through here in a second, which is kind of easy if you guys are unfamiliar, but this is nice little touch, and it also makes it easier to identify for customs purposes, because as you see, they have it labeled as a server, right? Also on the box, on the packaging itself, they also list it that way as well. That's also part of the reason for that FCC paperwork. As we know, ASIC miners have been getting scrutinized in terms of like customs and shipping and such, and it just makes it easier to identify what it actually is, right? There's a lot of confusion. Us as miners, we know what it is, but people who are outside of our niche, when they try to identify what this thing is, it just definitely helps with that clarification. Okay, now let's look at the actual unit, right? So let's compare it with any of the others, which have all been pretty similar. In this case, we'll compare it with the KS0 Pro. Let's take a look at it so we can see the difference. On one side, we see it has the power port, and that's the front part, right? That has been kind of one big annoyance, that the power port is here, and on the back side is the Ethernet. So when you're setting this thing up, you have a cord coming out here as well as in the back. Kind of a big change now. So now they are both on the back end, right? So making it easier to set up. I mean, that's a small little complaint, but that is just definitely an improvement in design. You can see the power port there, Ethernet right next to it. And the big change here also is down here. What do we have here? A Wi-Fi dongle. Okay, so we're going to test it out, see if it's actually active. Not too hopeful just because of how it went with the KS2 Lite. It may not. We'll try to mess around with it. My unit did not come with an antenna. We're going to try to find out to see if the retail units will come with one. We'll update you guys as we find that out. But pretty interesting differences. Not huge, but it is a subtle change. The Wi-Fi aspect would be extremely convenient, because that is one of the appeals with these little at-home ASICs, especially something like this where it's only 100 watts and it's not going to really affect the room temperature much, right? Once you get into the 400 or 500 waters, you do kind of feel it, especially if you're in a hotter climate. Me being down here in Florida, not too appealing, but at 100 watts, it's not something you're going to notice, right? If you have multiples of these, if you have 4 or 5 of these, like I did in the back, at that point you do kind of feel it. But being 100 water, you could throw it in a spare bedroom. You could throw it just literally anywhere. So hopefully that does come into play, because that does give extreme viability there. Okay. So now we are going to do a quick little overview of how to set this guy up, as well as look at performance and get to the rest of the video. Okay, so let's do that now. Alright guys, so in terms of setting this guy up, you're pretty much going to use your favorite app in order to find the new device on your network. I like using Advanced IP Scanner. Go on there, search through, double click on the one that's there. You're going to have the prompt to log into it. Your username is going to be admin, password is going to be 123456778. Once you are in, you're going to be seeing this. Okay, you're going to see your dashboard here. Can see this unit has now been running for 19 hours, right? So it's not something where we just plugged in and we're doing it. We do have some real world data, okay? The 1.5, which is such a small number, but the 1.5 minute hash rate is 70 mega hash. The average is 70. Although realistically, it's probably going to be quite a bit lower than that, just because we can see the fluctuations, right? We're going to look at the pool data here in a second, but according to that, so far it's doing pretty good. The pool rejection rate is 0. Accepted is 6,420, rejected is 0. We are using Whalepool just because, again, this unit has been tested extensively on Whalepool. So at least initially, we're going to use what we know is proven, okay? So everything here looks pretty normal, pretty usual compared to what we've seen until we go into the settings over here. You can see this bottom one. This is the exciting one, the Wi-Fi settings, okay? So the Wi-Fi does look like it will actually be working on this unit. We know it was promised on the KS2 Lite and it never did come. This time it is still being optimized, but as of now, at least mine has worked fine. Okay, as soon as you set it up, you're going to set it up through your regular Ethernet. Go into your Wi-Fi settings, click on, found my network, connected, worked instantly, right? So far, 0 issues. Right now, currently, it's not fully optimized, so realistically, probably going to still be better on Ethernet until we get a new firmware update, which hopefully by the time you guys get it, maybe it'll be out by then, and maybe it'll be performing better. As of now, though, it does seem like it is performing where it needs to be at, right? For me, I don't necessarily need the wireless. I just wanted to test it out for you guys. So far, can confirm that it's working. So by the time you guys get it, it does seem like it is going to be a feature that is going to be useful. So as we look at the data on the pool, which is what we're really concerned with, you can see here, it is, our average is 61.3 for the 15 minute, the 1 hour 62.68. The 24 is 46.7. The reason it's lower, you're going to need the full 24 hours to actually get a full number. Okay, every hour goes up little by little. So realistically, we need more time to get full data. After the first 24 hours, while it's on the wireless, I'll put a pinned comment on there, kind of just saying what the average was if it did hit that 60, right? Which currently looks like it is. And then I'm going to test it without it, right? Realistically, I'm going to be using Ethernet. I personally try to avoid using wireless when possible, just because, again, the Ethernet is a more solid connection. Okay, so overall performance does seem to be where it's at. The one thing I did notice after plugging in, initially hash rate was extremely good, then kind of slowly dropped off consistently. It wasn't just one of these things where it went down, kind of went back up. Went from 70, 12 minutes later went down to like 58, then 12 minutes later went down to like 48 and kind of stayed there for a little bit. Okay, so I did change some of the settings and kind of put the fans up higher. Just left it at a static 80%. These units with the 0 units, for any guys who've owned them in the past, you know that certain chips kind of have certain dynamics. Some like to run hot, some like to run cool. This is one that does seem like to run cooler. Okay, so it was going down until I turned the fan speed back up, and then it was consistently higher. Okay, so at least it seems like my unit likes to run cooler, so realistically I'll probably will be putting an external fan on there and then turning the internal fans a bit lower, right? So this is one you do kind of have to play around with, just because sometimes on auto, it's these little baby fans, it tends to either spin up too aggressively or spin down. You kind of lose a lot of the control there, right? So just make sure you do fully understand that. You want to give it time though. You want to adjust the setting, give it like 6 hours, 10 hours, and then look at your data, right? Realistically, if you're trying to adjust things every 15 seconds, because of the way ALEO's hash rate is, where it's up and down a lot, and you guys who GPU minded, you kind of know what I'm saying, it's going to be hard to really justify. You kind of have to wait for those averages in order to really make that determination, okay? So overall, performance-wise, the Wi-Fi is working, hopefully should be working fully or working better by the time the next firmware update comes out, so that's pretty cool, that's pretty exciting there. So again, performance-wise looks good. Now let's look at what I am most concerned with, and it's profitability and outlook, right? Realistically, yes, it's important to look at current profitability, but again, with ASICs, you want to see the longevity of this thing. You want to see kind of the impact, because with these immature networks, which ALEO is one, it's not a mature network like Bitcoin and Script. And what we're saying when we say immature networks, it's just a network without a whole lot of hash rate. The reason we're concerned with that is because, again, as your hash rate difficulty goes up, your yield is going to go down. Okay, and if it's something where only a couple hundred of these things is going to double the hash rate and therefore have your yields, we want to kind of take a look at that, right? So we're going to do a quick calculation to kind of just get a ballpark to see how many of these units it's going to take to have a massive effect. In this case, we're just going to try to double the overall hash rate, which again is going to have our yield. Okay, so current profitability again is going to look great, but what I will say here, focus on the yield, not the fiat profitability. Okay, because it's possible that as the hash rate increases, let's say it does actually double and your yield goes down to 18 ALEO. If ALEO's price doubles, your profitability is going to remain the same, right? But what I'm concerned with, again, is the yield. The yield, even if ALEO does a 2x tomorrow, your yield is still going to be in this range. Okay, that's where you need to focus on. Okay, because again, as we've seen, coin prices can double one day and then go down 80% the next day, especially with these smaller market cap coins. Okay, so make sure you fully understand that. And at least for me, the yield is a big deal. Okay, let's look at the overall hash rate of this guy. We're currently at about 521. We're going to continue to say gigahash, but it's actually gigaproofs, right? So this is a little bit different. The concept is the same, but you're not really mining, you're proving, right? You're proving zero knowledge proofs. So that's why you see gproof here, but it's labeled as gigahash, right? So it's the same moniker though, megahash, gigahash, terahash. It's just, you're going to see that difference in name. Okay. So currently, again, we're 520. Back in early February, when these things were first coming on, we were anywhere like 180 to 200, right? So from where we're at right now, it's been about a 3x in overall increase in the hash rate. So the yield has gone down pretty dramatically. And we've seen that over time. I don't know if you guys remember that these guys, when they were first announced, they were like 50 bucks, 40 bucks, 30 bucks, and just gradually going down just because the yield is going down. And depending on the time, the price of ALEO was also going down. Again, the yield is what you want to focus on though. Okay, so currently as is, again, we're about 521 gigahash, gigaproof, but we'll call it gigahash. So now let's take a look at what it takes to kind of get a ballpark for that, right? We're not going to do exact numbers. We're going to do easy math just to kind of get a ballpark. Like, is it something where only 500 of these things that's going to double it? Or is it going to be something more significant? In this case, it is going to be a little bit more significant. Okay, so what we do know is that each unit is what? 60 megahash. Okay, we're going to use this little hash rate converter. All it's doing, it's adding the zeros, right? When we go up from megahash to gigahash, for example, it's by 1,000. Gigahash, terahash, another 1,000. Okay, this is just easier to visualize. In this case, we know each unit is what? 60 megahash. Let's say theoretically, let's ballpark 1,000 units. How much of an effect is that going to have? Well, we could just multiply your 60 megahash, multiply it by the 1,000 units that we think we're going to have, and that's going to give us 60 gigahash. So the overall network will go up by about 60 gigahash, which not a whole lot, right? When the overall hash rate is 521, easy math purposes, let's try to actually go and double this. Okay, in this case, we're going to go over that, right? Because at this point it's 60, we're going to do easy math. We're going to add another zero, right? Meaning 10,000 of these units is going to add an additional 600 gigahash to the network. Okay, then at that point, it's going to be more than double. Okay, so in order for us to double, meaning your yield is going to get cut in half, we're going to need 10,000 of these units, right? Whether it's these units or the gold shell units, because they're give or take around the same actual mega hash, that's how many of these little guys it's going to take, right? So the network has definitely matured quite a bit, so it's not super new, but understand that as these bigger units come on, those will be your bigger factors, okay? Because for example, we already have the next in line for these AE0s in the sense of the other guy, the AE1 Lite. It is 300 megahash, meaning what? It is 5 of those guys. Okay, so one AE1 Lite is the equivalent of 5 of the AE0s. So although it's going to take 10,000 of the AE0s to increase it by that much, it's only going to be a fifth of that. So instead of being 10,000, it'll be 2,000. So 2,000 AE1 Lites will double it. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. Is that super likely to happen? Hard to say. At that current price, it is hard to pay that amount. Okay, and considering the current market sentiment, I don't necessarily seeing it happen or seeing it be like super likely, right? At that point, it's not a tough sell, or a very tough sell, I should say. What the concern needs to be here, though, is the bigger guy. Okay, this is where it does get extremely tricky. Okay, because overall you see those numbers, oh, it's 10,000 of those units, that's a good amount, we should be good for a while. So as long as we do go for at least a few months with just the little guys, things will probably pan out well. The issue becomes the big boy. The reason we're saying the big boy is an issue is because of how much hash it's going to be. Okay, we do know typically that what? Those IceRiver units are about 3,500 watts. This A0 is 100 watts. Okay, so just easy math purposes, multiply your 60 by your 35, it's going to give you about 2,100 megahash. Each one of those big boy units likely to be right around somewhere in that ballpark, give or take 5-10%. Okay? If we're at 2,100 megahash, an average batch from what we've seen in the past, about 2,000 units, right? Whether they all sell or not, we don't know. Sometimes with like the AL3, for example, seems like it was closer to like the 1,000, 1,300 range. Okay, but let's say even just 1,000 of those bigger boy units come online. This is where things change, right? So if we're saying one unit is going to be 2,100 megahash, let's throw 3 zeros on there because we're multiplying the 2,100 megahash by 1,000 units. 1,000 of those big boy units is going to add about 2,100 gigahash to the overall network. This is where it's pretty hefty. At that point, it's close to a damn near 4x. Okay, so your yield's going to get cut down to a fourth. Big difference. Okay, and again, that's only 1,000 units. Very likely that the batch will be bigger, and that's only considering IceRiver's bigger unit. We also know that Bitmain is going to release a unit. Okay, so this is where things do get quite a bit nutty. And that's why your concern here is how long till those big boys come out, because that's what's going to have the massive effect on the overall network, which is going to have the massive effect on your overall yield. Okay, so the name of the game here is what you're betting on, essentially, because again, if profitability remains here, if you're able to get about 3 months or so with this, going to look pretty good, because again, the bulk of the money to be made with this guy, I'm saying money, but in reality, yield. Yield is going to eventually be the money if you're going to mine and hodl, but the yield, the bulk of the yield is going to be made those months prior to that big boy unit coming out. If you're able to get 3 solid months before those guys have an effect on the network, probably going to make out pretty well. If that big boy unit gets announced 2 weeks from now, not going to be looking too great. The only advantage you're going to have is that typically, let's say it gets announced tomorrow. It's typically a 4 to 6 week window until that unit is actually in people's hands. Okay, so still kind of buying you time in a sense. But this is what you're betting against. Okay, you need to fully understand that really you are kind of taking a gamble here. This is not something where like you're buying a Bitcoin ASIC or a script ASIC. I'll mine and hodl in 2 years I should get my ROI or a majority of my money back. Realistically, the bulk of the yield is going to be made those first few months. If you're able to get beyond that, it's going to be all gravy. We're going to have to wait and see, right? But realistically, you're going to want to hang on to the yield. The primary benefit with these small units, especially something that's 100 watts, it makes it very easy to mine and hodl. If you have one of these 3,500 watt units or an extremely inefficient unit like those gold shells, it's going to suck when the hash rate difficulty goes up and you're unprofitable. Okay, but at this point, this is as efficient as it's going to be. Bitmain may beat them out a little bit, but typically they're within that ballpark. But the efficiency being 5 times plus better than the gold shell unit puts you in a much better position for longevity. Okay, because again, it being only 100 watts, it's something that you can not really feel on your electric bill. Almost kind of regardless of your kilowatt hour. Okay, obviously if you're crazy up there, you don't want to be mining either. But if you're higher like I am, 14 cents, maybe 18 cents, 100 watts isn't that big of a deal. 3,500 watts though, massive, right? Talk to any of the guys with the AL3. It's a massive deal. Okay, so that's why for me, even with some of the other zeros like the AL0 and such, guess what? Those are still plugged in because they're only 100 watts a piece. If I were to have a 3,500 watt unit, that guy would be unplugged 100%. Right? So this kind of gives you that advantage of it being such little wattage, being able to just mine and hodl for a long period of time. Right? So that's definitely an advantage here. That's definitely kind of what I view as appealing here. Okay, but again, for me, realistically, kind of only makes sense if you get in on one of these initial batches, specifically prior to that big boy. Okay. And the reason we're saying mine and hodl, the other big difference here is the timing of the release, like where this coin price action is in comparison to some of the other releases. Specifically, let's compare with the AL0 again. Alephium was at a much higher price point and it just continued to bleed from there. We can look at ALEO's chart. It's arguably at a low here. Can it continue to go down further? Absolutely. Looking at this chart, though, to me, it looks like there's potentially more upside than downside, though. Realistically, we don't know. It can continue to bleed. It can continue to go down, not only back to these 11, 12 cents where it was just a few weeks ago, it can continue to go down further, right? But at this point, even at its current little pump price, is about $89 million market cap, rank number 487. It's a coin that has been around for a long time, a ton of development, has a ton of big institutional backers. Okay, and this is kind of one of the bigger appeals with this guy, for me at least, because of who's investing in it, specifically this one being a very unique one, because it put them in a unique position, being a relatively new coin that was listed immediately on Coinbase, which is something that is kind of rare, right? So Coinbase Ventures is backing this thing. Coinbase also runs multiple validators for them. They are very intertwined. Okay, so when I see those types of things, those are the kinds of things that kind of have me bullish over the long term, specifically over these next 6 months or so. Okay, kind of have to make your determination there. Are you a person who's actually bullish on ALEO? Do you think it'll do well? Then this can potentially do well. If you're more in the mindset like, nope, it's another crap coin, it's definitely continue to bleed, this is not for you, right? And sometimes coins aren't necessarily for you, but the mining profitability looks good. In this case, though, the only way it makes sense is if you think long term the price will appreciate well, and you are a person who actually does really believe in ALEO. Okay, if you don't necessarily meet those criterias, not going to necessarily be for you. Also, understand that you are taking a huge risk. This is literally a gamble. You are betting on how long you're going to have until those big boy units come out and have a massive, massive effect on the network and massive effect on your overall yield. Okay, again, the longer you go without that, so if the price action stays sideways, goes like this for quite a while, kind of extends that possibility. Okay, I know some people don't like saying that, but sometimes that is your best friend. Okay, so it's up to you to determine on what you think there. For me personally, looking at the risk factor, it's definitely a tough sell, right? It's very dependent on your strategy. Like, for example, me with this guy, I will be mining and hodling, right? I do think ALEO will do well. At this point, this guy, that's going to be your main advantage, right? And overall, we will be able to track it. We'll see how well it does these next 6 months or so, right? Realistically, right now, these next 2-3 months, hopefully we are able to get a good amount of yield. But what's really going to determine how well not only this guy does, but any of these ASICs do is what happens during the peak of this thing, right? Do we make out well? Do we not? To me, it's too early to say. Like, I know there's a lot of people crapping out on any of the lithium ASICs or any of the other Caspa ASICs. It's like until I hit that bull market, until I feel we've hit that peak, that's when I can make a true determination, right? And unfortunately, we're not going to know till then. Again, the advantage here is just the amount of capital you're spending. You're able to get a slice of the pie without taking a full-blown risk. Like for me, arguably the A1 Lite, definitely a lot riskier, especially at that $3,000 price point. Because of where we're at in the market, there's a lot of coins you can buy. At $7.99, definitely more tempting, right? But it's going to definitely be up to you, your risk appetite, where you're at in your portfolio. Because again, ALEO's price definitely arguably low from where it's at. So not as low as where it was a few weeks ago. But what also makes it difficult is looking at the overall crypto market and just seeing how many deals there are still, which are slowly slipping away because of where the price action is. You've been investing, you've been in the game, you've probably been pretty happy these past few days, right? And that's where this guy gets more appealing, is that as the prices kind of slip by with you on these, this is what makes ASICs in certain cases a little bit more appealing. But when the prices are extremely low, in many cases, a lot of these coin prices were like 50% from where they're at now just a few days ago. Okay, but once they pump up, that's where these other things get more appealing, right? So kind of to each their own. Overall, though, guys, extremely risky. Understand the risks, understand the dynamics, understand where you're competing against, and it's that big boy unit, okay? Let me know in the comments, though, guys. What do you guys think? Did you guys pick up one of these? What do you guys think of the Wi-Fi? To me, that's kind of a big deal, and hopefully we do continue to see that moving forward, because that does give a lot more use case to this guy, a lot more versatility to this guy. But let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of ALEO? Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I am out.